wearing?
Don't get up with the shorts on, Will.
They're pajama pants, thank you.
All right, so hello and welcome to the third and final installment of our collaborative virtual career series, Corona Now What? My name is Cindy Brown and I'm the Vice President of Talent Initiatives for The Right Place here in Grand Rapids. Along with Hello West Michigan, Calvin University, Cornerstone University, Grand Valley State University, and Aquinas College have all partnered to bring you this series, and we've been focused on giving our students tangible and concrete things to do in order to set you up for success post-quarantine. Today, we're going to talk about putting your best face forward virtually. Video interviews can be tricky, and even before this, we saw a growing number of companies utilizing them as an initial screen or the first interview. Although a lot of the same advice you would receive about in-person interviews applies to virtual interviews, there's some unique quirks, as you saw us earlier, and we have a great lineup of professionals to show you the do's and the don'ts. So serving as our interviewers today, we have Mickey Maher, University Relations Manager for Rock Central, Will Maurer, Head of Talent Acquisition for Steelcase, and our interviewees, we have Nick Scobie, Career Coach at Calvin University, and Bridget Avery, Associate Director of Career Services, Internship Director from Aquinas College. So we're going to pretend like this is a real life interview. So we are going to get started. So Mickey and Nick, when you're ready.
Awesome. Hi, Nick. Thanks for meeting with us today. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thanks so much for taking the time to chat with me. So I'm a senior at Calvin University. I'm an English major, and I came in initially really wanting to help people in some form. And through my time at Calvin, I've learned that specifically it's kind of moved toward like ways that I can help them with events and things like that. So the thing I think that really changed my view on this was my job recently. I've been working for the past 2 years at the Service Learning Center, and I help to coordinate events for our campus. I help to coordinate Street Fest, so that's part of our orientation program where I've overseen the entire service learning program for 1,000 first-year students. And then after that, I've also been working with the Spring Break Trips program. So I help to coordinate the placement of about 80 students across about 10 different service learning sites across the US. And I've really just found that I love the work of being able to help people. I think I'm really good at it. I'm really organized, and I find so much joy in being able to help create an experience that really can shape a person's mentality. And so I'm really excited to talk to you today about this position with Rock Central, because I really know that you value creating events that will really help to captivate and wow your audience and make an experience that truly is memorable for everyone in attendance. So thank you so much.
All right, so as you can see, Nick did a fabulous job. He's got a great background. He also is very professionally dressed today. He used a lot of great examples of why he would be a good fit for the position. He mentioned Rock Central, which was great. So he talked about that a little bit, which was fantastic. He had emotion. A lot of times people think with these virtual interviews, there's not going to be any emotion, but he definitely had emotion. He used his hands, which were good, but he didn't go crazy with it. He was really good with it. And he also, he knew his surroundings, and that was one thing that in preparation he knew where he needed to look at the camera. He knew what to do. He knew kind of voice. He had that all planned out. So well done, Nick. Any other questions from Will or Mickey, or any comments, Bridget? All right. So now we have our next set of interview, which is going to be Will and Bridget.
All right, hello, Bridget. Thank you for taking time to speak with me today. I am really excited to talk to you and learn a little bit more about your background. Bridget, are you there? Hello?
Oh, hi. Sorry. Wasn't quite ready there. Hi. I'm sorry. Oh, right, about me. My name's Bridget, and I'm at Aquinas College, And you know, I'm gonna I need to go. Hold on. I'm so sorry. 1 second. I wasn't. Okay, I'm so sorry. I had to plug my computer in. I had enough. Okay, all right, good. I'm good. All right. So, yeah, so I'm a psychology major and an art minor, and I am really interested in an internship with your organization.
I'm like, is there more? All right.
No, that's all I
A
have.
little bit, a little bit of an exaggeration, but also reality. There were a lot of things that occurred during that interview, that answer, that we're seeing every day. And right from the get-go with the mute on, you always want to be ready ahead of time. She didn't have her video on. She did not have her audio on. Put her hair up. And I love Bridget dearly, but I gotta tell you all this stuff, Bridget. But PJ's on the bottom,
Oh, did you see that?
Yeah, so we're all, as you can see, we're not gonna show what we have, shorts or whatever we have on, but if you're gonna do that, you need to make sure you're not walking around with your laptop. Walking the laptop from different rooms, very not professional. The plug, if you need a plug source, that's something you gotta think about ahead of time, making sure your computer is set up and ready to go ahead of time, making sure it's plugged in. Her answer, she didn't mention, Will's company. She didn't say Steelcase. Moving around the room, not being prepared. There's a lot of stuff that just wasn't really good with them. Do our recruiters, Mickey or Will, do you guys have any comments?
Yeah, I did just want to add one thing. Oh, sorry, Will.
No,
this
go ahead.
will happen, definitely the give and take in the virtual situation, especially, even just now when we both want to speak up at the same time. So there's there's an understanding with recruiters that sometimes this isn't your new, or this is your new normal and you haven't been used to it before, but definitely still be prepared. I can understand maybe your Wi-Fi cutting out mid-call or someone coming into your room mid-call or something that you didn't plan, but you definitely still want to take steps to try to control everything within your control.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that from an employer perspective, we're certainly cognizant of the fact that it's a new reality for all of us, and there's going to be some things that we're understanding of, but there's other things that are within your control that I think you need to make note of. And so I think testing your microphone and your camera before you get started with something like this is a really good idea. I also think being very aware of your surroundings and what might show up in the background. I know it's not always possible to get to a secluded, quiet place. I can tell you that from personal experiences. I have had many conference calls recently interrupted by my toddler. Okay, so things like that happen, but I think preparation is the key. So just understanding that you're still expected to present yourself in a professional light.
Right, and regarding the internet as well, I have another person, my husband's in the house. I just asked him to not be streaming stuff, just to be safe. And I know a lot of you have brothers and sisters and kids and spouses and roommates and everybody's got everything open. Maybe just ask them to shut those things down. The interview, maybe a half hour, 45 minutes, hour. I'm sure they can figure out something else to do during that time frame.
And I also wanted to note that I was starting the interview from my bedroom, which if that is the only space that you have, okay, but not on your bed, on your bed. And I've seen many videos from students handing in assignments and like they're on their bed. And I just would prefer like maybe just get on the floor and have the bed as the backdrop. But I just, and I didn't even make the bed, which was also embarrassing. I forgot I didn't do that.
Awesome. All right. So our next question that we're gonna talk about really is relevant to today. you may get a question in an interview that's directly related to the coronavirus, COVID-19. So let's see how that works. So I'm going to ask Mickey and Nick to go.
Absolutely. So Nick, I know this is a new situation to most of us, and most of us haven't experienced something like this, but tell me how this coronavirus situation, this COVID situation directly impacted you, and even further than that, how did you adapt in this situation?
Yeah, that's a great question, Mickey. It was pretty startling for me because I had to adapt to go to completely online classes within a matter of, just a few days notice. And in that process, I had to move back home to be with my parents because the apartments on my campus were shut down as well. So there was just a lot of changing pieces that happened just so fast, so it felt like I was moving from one thing to the next, and quite a whirlwind. But when I got back, and I settled in at my parents' place, I realized really quickly that I'm the kind of person who really likes to create a schedule. And with my classes moving online, suddenly the schedule that had been set for me with my academic advisors was no longer valid, and I had to do that for myself. So I sat down the first weekend I was home, and I kind of created a schedule. So on Mondays, I'm going to start off with, even though I don't have my biology class anymore for my core, I'm still going to focus on doing some biology related coursework from that time. And that helped me just to create a schedule to stay organized. I also realized though that I'm the kind of person who does need social interactions, and so I've also built in times to connect with people who I miss, who I've been living with in the apartment. I have moved beyond just relying just on text, but have gone above and beyond trying to focus on creating some FaceTime chats with my friends and checking in on them. And I think through that I've been able to demonstrate like my ability to adapt and manage my own needs, but also to recognize that I can help to create systems, such that I'm demonstrating that other people can also use, helping my friends to say, this has worked for me, maybe you should try it out. And I found that that's really worked really well for me, having a set schedule, connecting with peers, focusing on academics. And so I think that through that, I've really demonstrated adaptability.
All right, excellent. So a lot of good stuff. Nick, you're our A student today. A lot of good stuff. And you talked about the changing, the having to adapt quickly, having to come up with the schedule on his own. I thought a great tip was that he didn't have the biology class during a set time anymore. However, he took time during that time period to schedule out work towards biology to start that schedule. I thought that was really good. He also spoke about getting more social and making sure that he had those interactions. Those are super, super important at this time. If you're just sitting in a room or closed room or with your earbuds on and all you're doing is focusing on your schoolwork without any interactions, that's not what it was before. So being able to schedule time for that is extremely helpful for your psyche, as well as hopefully for the work that you're doing with your schoolwork. So Mickey, any tips, or Will, any tips?
Yeah, I do have one thing that I just wanted to highlight, because Cindy, like you said, that's so important to talk about that and to voice that with your other friends. But it even shows recruiters that you're going above and beyond and in communicating with other people. So that shows me that you'd work well in a team with strong communication. You'd work well in a team in general. So even though you were highlighting some of your hard skills, you showcase some of your soft skills just by talking about your day-to-day. And that's awesome for recruiters to hear. That really helps us figure out which team you would learn best with or just grow with. So I think that's awesome that you brought that up too.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that this is something that employers will definitely focus on and value. So the ability to adapt, the ability to be agile in a situation. I can tell you that just about every day of my career, I have a plan for the day, and very rarely does everything go according to plan, right? So we need to be able to do that. We need to be able to adjust on the fly, and so that's an important thing to be able to exhibit to employers.
Excellent. All right. So our second interview with this exact same question is next. I'm going to go ahead and let Will and Bridget take it over.
All right, Bridget. Obviously, some unique circumstances facing us today. And I know that for me personally, I've had to adapt rather quickly. Tell me what you have done to adapt to the current situation with the coronavirus.
Oh, yeah. So at first, I was like very excited to not have to go to my 8 a.m. class because I mean, it's 8 a.m. and it's biology. I mean, to be honest, who wants to go to biology at 8 a.m.? But then I guess they decided to make it, it's called synchronous. So like we all had to be on a Zoom at 8 a.m., which I mean, I don't understand. It was super annoying. But so I mean, once I got used to that, oh, oops. My phone's okay, where was I? Oh yeah, so my classes, so I mean, I'm doing that, and my other classes were the opposite of that. So like I could do it whenever I wanted to. So like I have been saving up some of that works because I like yesterday was so nice. So like I was like, I just didn't do anything, but now like today it's rainy and I have a lot more to do, but I still don't really feel like doing it because now it's like rainy and depressing. So so yeah, I mean everyone's getting used to it, right? So that's what I'm just
All right.
the end.
The end. All right. Yeah. And scene. All right. So a couple of things, obviously, you know, you always want to make sure that your phone can be on silent more so than just the vibrate because she could hear it. Plus, I don't know if she answered it back or if she was able to text the person. You never want to do that in an interview. We don't do that in person. We're definitely not going to do that in a virtual interview. So that was first thing. Second thing, she did not have a lot of eye contact with the camera. And that's, you know, that takes some getting used to. And I will tell you, we are on about 3 different platforms right now: Zoom, WebEx, Google Hangout. Each one is different on how you look in the camera and that. So you can practice. All of those are free accounts right now. I'm going to be honest with you. I am changing up my background. So I changed up my background. So I got on I just set up a Zoom call and I looked at it just to see where I was standing, how I looked in the picture. And you can do that. There's no cost. It still allows you that opportunity to practice ahead of time. One of the things I'm hearing too is that it's very hard, and maybe this is why Bridget didn't look at the camera. It's very hard to see yourself because you're watching yourself talk while you're speaking, and that sometimes is a little rough for people as well. So the more you practice, you get used to it, and you're looking at the camera and not the video of yourself going off. The third thing, you know, employers are talking about before COVID-19 and after. We talk a lot about employability skills and professional skills and soft skills, whatever you want to call them, but problem solving, adaptability, critical thinking, all of those things are so essential in a job. Bridget showed none of that, with all due respect. She showed none of that in any of her answers, which makes it so difficult for an employer to send you on for a second interview or whatever you were in the interview process when you're talking about things you hate. The parts that you hate are just terrible. That's not good. So any other questions, any other comments? I'll start with you, Will, this time, and then Mickey will go to you.
No, I would absolutely agree with everything that you said. And again, I know it's not an optimal situation, but we're looking for the ability to adapt. And the reality of the situation is that what we're going through now may affect the way that we work forever. I mean, these types of things will become more and more commonplace. And so I think great idea to practice and prepare in some of those things that you talked about.
Excellent.
Yeah, and one thing that helps me, especially when it comes to like looking at the camera, or because I will look at myself talk to make sure I'm not like, I talk with my hands a lot and I jump from topic to topic a lot. That's just like who I am as a person. So before I go into meetings, I'll write down a few like key points that I want to touch upon. And you can do that in interviews too. Just have that in front of you to be more prepared. So that way, if you missed over one key point that you want to showcase, you can see that you've either like knocked that off or that you need to come back and do it again. So that's just another thing if you're one of those people who just is all over the place, because sometimes I'm like that too, and that helps.
Excellent. Nick, do you have anything to add?
I think it's always helpful to note as well that with the phones, I think a lot of people will leave it on like the table especially. So even if you're not like paying attention to the phone on the table, we can always hear when it's buzzing, even if like the ringer is off. And so if nothing else, that still is a cue to us as your audience that you're not fully engaged with the interview. And so I think that's one big thing. I think another thing is that in this time, you can think about ways you could even talk about more of those soft skills, or at Calvin, we talk about them being power skills or employability skills, like how are you patient with your professors, right? This is a huge time where your professors are very overwhelmed, and the way in which you can be gracious to them and talk about that in an interview can really help to showcase what kind of employee you're going to be when you're going into a work environment that is really difficult for a lot of people because they're working under new circumstances. So I think those are some things that you can really think about, as well as what personal traits, outside of just the way you schedule things, have you exhibited in this time?
Thank
Yeah,
you.
and I think that's a really great point. Nick and Will both made that. I agree. I think that, particularly in bigger cities, people are going to say, hey, we worked from home for 6 weeks and we were still super productive and efficient. So maybe 2 times a week, we allow employees to work remotely. And so if you're already proving like, yeah, I don't have a whole lot of initiative to, get my work done, or I'm complaining about having to check in, at the start of a work day, is maybe not incredibly helpful. But also think about that intergenerational piece too. If we're all going to remote working, some folks that are not familiar with these technologies. So I think, making that connection that Nick said about being gracious to your faculty members can also translate to being gracious with, our coworkers who maybe are not familiar. And so not to be like, oh, I can't believe she's not putting herself on mute. But like, how do you kindly say, hey, can you make sure that you're all on mute?
Exactly. All right. So we've got one last question, just to see if our interviews are prepared for the questions that they receive. So Mickey and Nick, you are up.
Awesome. So Nick, the event space is a pretty big space. Tell me why you're interested in this role specifically.
Yeah, I'd love to. So as I mentioned, I had a kind of an unexpected journey into my interest in event planning. But through my work experiences at the Service Learning Center, where I have had experience being the primary facilitator for 2 very large events on campus, I've really demonstrated that I'm really good at like keeping track of all the details. I'm understanding of the customer experience, and I'm really empathetic to what they're going through, and I'm really engaged in their experience. And I want customers to thrive through the events that we put on for them. I was affirmed in this, in that I had been previously doing a volunteer role with some tutoring, and that actually led to an invitation from that organization where I was able to help to facilitate their annual fundraiser event. And so my role was rather minor in that, but again, I was able to participate this in another context with other people, where we were helping to support events and people, and focusing on, again, that customer experience. And I really just value, the ability to help people thrive and flourish. And I think my skill sets really align with the things that you value. I love that your company really focuses on the customer experience. And I think that, together, I would really be able to help ensure that your customers are getting above and beyond what they're asking for. And so Mickey, I really think I would be a great fit, because our values line up, and I have all the skills that you're looking for. And I think in addition, I think I can bring a lot of things maybe that you're not looking for in terms of just the way I think about events and the way I can help them to be more than what the customer is asking for.
Excellent. All right. So first thing, emotion. When she asked him about why he's interested, he got all excited. He showed great emotion, excitement about the position. He's done it, so he was able to give really good examples. He talked a lot about customer service. Any type of events, you want to make sure the customer's happy. He talked a great deal about making sure that the customers are able to thrive. He also mentioned his skills that he's got. His skill sets are very strong. And he also spoke about, he also brought it home and brought it over to the company, and then also used Mickey's name, which is great, and then closed it and said, and here's why I'm your best person for it. So any other comments? Let's start. Mickey, you go first, then Will.
Sure. Yeah. One additional thing is the summary that you did at the end was perfect, because you are already showcasing and telling me a story about how you would fit into this role. But then when you summarized it all at the end, it became top of mind for me after the conversation. So that's great that you did that too.
Yep, I agree with that. And one of the things I did make note of is the fact that you did use Mickey's name a couple of times, which I think personalizes it quite a bit. I actually like that. Approach. Also, the fact that you took an opportunity to not only tell us why you thought you were qualified for the role, but hey, here's some other things I think I could contribute that you may not have thought of, right? I think that's really interesting. That shows some initiative and the fact that you've reflected on this. So that's good stuff.
All right, excellent. And Will, good luck. You have Bridget one last time.
I still got Bridget, huh? Okay. All right, Bridget. If you could, tell me why you applied to this role. What stood out about it to you?
Right. The role, which for this job at Steelcase, the direct sell internship. So one of the things that I really thought was interesting is that I would be organizing, analyzing, researching, and proofreading internal purchase orders. That sounded like something I'd like to do. Also, ensuring that orders are acknowledged within the sales service also is something that I would be interested in doing. And you're looking for someone with excellent verbal and written communication skills, and clearly I have that. I am getting my bachelor's degree, not in any of the things that you said that you wanted, but I feel like it's still translatable. And yeah, so I did not realize that this job was for Mexico though. So is this something that I could do in Grand Rapids?
No.
I'm like, are we done? What are we keep going or what?
Keep going, but hold on. I want you to notice my horrible sun back here.
I noticed it, trust
So,
me.
I wore this shirt. I think a lot of students don't realize, if they wear something like this and then they move around, it's not professional. Don't do it.
I wrote it down, trust me, I wrote it down. The window, and this is a tough one, and I'm gonna let the recruiters also answer this one as well, our talent acquisition folks. Today's a darker day, right? So the sunlight that you were getting into your room yesterday is so different today, and making sure that you have light and good light, but you can't have that window behind you where it was very hard to see Bridget's face and her emotions. So so that was the first thing. Obviously the dress, we noticed that as you were moving around. She read the notes right from the computer screen. She read the job description right from the computer screen. So didn't do a lot of preparation ahead of time. and kept moving closer and closer to the screen to read her notes, and it's very uncomfortable when you're trying to talk with someone and they keep doing that. I'm gonna let you guys go and have some fun like I've been having. So go ahead. Is there things that you guys have?
Bridget, your acting skills are just phenomenal. I just need to say that. Wow. But also one thing I would add to is the background, and we are going to touch upon this in the chat questions too, but even if that's your only location, just let the recruiter know, like have a why behind the reason you're doing it this way. And then I'm going to understand. I'm not just going to be like, oh, but if you explain, that makes sense. And then the second thing is the location is important. I can't speak for every single organization, but a lot of recruiters recruit specifically for that city or that job description. So if I'm in Detroit and having a 40-minute phone conversation with someone and then they say, oh, but I thought this was for something else, that's kind of, one, looks bad on the interviewee because you didn't even really look into the position, but also I could have been having this conversation. If you needed it at a different city, I could have passed you along to one of my recruiting partners. So just like having that conversation is important.
Mm-hmm. The only other thing I would add is that I was kind of chuckling to myself when you kept mentioning, I'd be interested in that. I'd be interested in that. I'd be interested in that. But you never told me why you'd be interested in that. Like what, why does that speak to you? What in your background aligns with that? I mean, make sure that you're giving some meat to your answer, I guess. So that was just one thing I noted.
So I'm going to go off script a little bit. So Will and Mickey, have you guys seen interviews like this? Bridget's? I mean, hopefully you're seeing a lot like Nick. Are you seeing anything like?
Yes. Yes. Over the course of my career, more than I would like to admit, but yes, I have.
And maybe not all at once, but definitely aspects of it, right?
Right. And I just wanted to clarify that too. I said, a little bit of exaggeration, but the exaggeration was in 30 seconds. So maybe the person doesn't do everything in that interview, but the pieces that Bridget was doing, those will get maybe 2 or 3 during an interview. Bridget's not going to do that. I mean, you're probably not going to see everything that Bridget did in a normal interview or a regular interview. You're going to see bits and pieces of it. But when you can see how, when all of those things get added in, it was just, and I hate to say it, but it was a train wreck, right? So
yeah. I can't tell you the number of times that back in my recruiting days that I would have someone say, whether it be phone or video or whatever, say, well, I've been applying to a lot of jobs, so which one is this one? Right? And just show complete lack of preparation, or also doesn't make you feel very special as an employer, right? Like you should have reasons why you want a role or you want to work for a certain company. You should have at least a surface idea of that if you apply for a job.
Exactly. So I want to continue with the question. So Dana, our helpful administrator of the chat room, career executive director of career services at Aquinas College.
Yeah, well, the director of career services at the, yes, you did, but that's great. Bridget and I love those little boosts. But yes, the Aquinas Advantage Center is where Bridget and I live and work typically when we aren't working from home as we all are.
All right, so do we have any questions in the chat room?
We do actually, and Mickey alluded to them. The first was about the background, and I think we were talking about this a little earlier. I see some artwork on the walls. I see a closeted door or just very clear, but does background matter? And as recruiters, do you have preferences, or are there things you would suggest that we do and avoid doing?
Yeah, I think, like I mentioned, if you just explain the why behind why you have a interesting background, like fits a normal background. Like I have a chair on the wall. Some people ask me about it because they're like, that's clever that you have like extra storage on your wall. Some people think it's art. Like, I don't know, but it's pretty, I guess it can be distracting because people are curious what it is, but ultimately I don't think it matters to an extent. But if it's like that light coming in, or if it's really noisy in the background, Zoom does this thing, and I know a lot of other virtual platforms create a background for you. So you can do that too if you're just hesitant or nervous about what a recruiter would think about your home, because I know for some people it's very hard and they don't want to bridge that gap between work and home. You want your home life to be your home life, and it's weird having an interview in your home. So you can have that virtual background in order to differentiate the two, and that'll kind of help you see that this is more of a working environment. So you can always do something like that. So that one's tough, but I would say as long as it's not too noisy, you're okay. If it's a closet, it's fine. Artwork, fine. Make sure it's not explicit or anything like that, and you'll be okay.
So a few years ago, I had a Zoom interview for a position, and actually my voice, the microphone on my computer wasn't working. So then I had to get on my cell phone, and then I had my audio through my cell phone and my face through the camera. And it was really just a horrible experience, and I apologized the whole way through. And I have a question here from Olivia. If an interviewer is having those sort of technical difficulties, right? Poor internet connection while doing a chat, or just things aren't working, is it acceptable to say, can we switch to a phone call, or can you say, can we reschedule? I guess, what do you suggest?
I would say that's appropriate. If you're really running into technical difficulties, I think that's absolutely appropriate. Again, trying to be understanding of the situation and the unique circumstances around everything. I can speak for myself personally, then I would rather reschedule or go through some other medium than having to try to decipher and struggle our way through a call that's constantly breaking up, because it's just not, it's not going to be effective for you. It's not going to be effective for me. And I would rather just, yeah, get it at a different time, maybe when it can all work correctly.
Right, and I think also I saw a question too about the earbuds. I'm wearing earbuds because I can hear a lot better with this. And I noticed the other night when my husband and I were doing a virtual Zoom happy hour, that every time the other person was talking, the other couple was talking, we kept doing this so we could hear, and then we'd go back, and then they would say something and we would go in. So for me, the earbuds allow me not to have to do that. So the microphone's here, so you can hear me clear, hopefully, and then I can hear the other voices that are on the Zoom call.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on that too, because in my apartment, we have 2 recruiters. So we're both on our separate systems all of the time. So I usually dial in through my phone and have the audio here, because if I have my laptop audio open, then you'll hear Mike interviewing in the background, or vice versa. And that's just something you'll need to figure out, because like Cindy said, we didn't realize how much the computer up. So I would always prefer to be safer than sorry, because who knows what confidential information he's talking to with his candidates. Like, I don't want this entire webinar to hear that either. So troubleshoot that for sure. And if you're more comfortable dialing with your phone, it doesn't matter what type of headphones, or if you have headphones on, it's just whatever works best for you.
Yep, headphones don't bother me at all. Totally good with that.
So I have a question about general recruiting during this day and age. You know, you send out or you apply for a position. I mean, both Nick and Bridget had jobs that they were referring to in that last question, right? And you might not hear, maybe the hiring process has gotten delayed, or maybe things are just sort of in flux right now. As a candidate, I guess I have curiosity. Do I send an email? Do I phone call? Do I inquire about, you know, statuses? How do you approach that in any time, but especially now?
Yeah, I think you can always have, and I can speak mostly on our recruiting team. I haven't really worked on recruiting teams outside of this, but you can always pose questions to your recruiters, just as long as you're seeking to understand and you're not like, why haven't you called me back? Why haven't I got, but if you're trying to figure out, is it because of X, Y, and Z instead of being very, just, I don't know how to describe it, but if you're just seeking to understand instead of being so like blunt with it, it's easier for recruiters to work with, because like we've mentioned a few times, this is new for everyone. Even though we're, you know, a pretty large company, it's something we still struggle with too, because we're new. So if I have a candidate who maybe doesn't see it that way, then that in my head makes me feel like you wouldn't work well on a team that we have. So you can always ask those questions and seek to understand.
Yep, I would agree with that. I think the seeking to understand is key, right? Absolutely. I think you're within your rights to reach out. I can tell you that as a talent acquisition organization, we don't ever want anyone to feel like their resume went to a black hole, and we want to follow up with people, and we want for it to be a positive experience for you all the way around. But as Nikki was alluding to, it is new to all of us, and we're operating under some really unique circumstances at the moment. I joke with my boss all the time that, you know, I'd pull out my pandemic playbook if I had one, but I don't have one. Like this is the first time I've ever faced situations like this. So just again, a little bit of understanding is certainly appreciated.
Yeah, I wanted to jump in because I think students often struggle. Like one of the hardest questions in the interview is when the interview is over and the interviewer says, "Do you have any questions for us?" And the student's like, "Nope, I'm all set." You know, it's like, I don't know about you all. I'm not a recruiter, but that would be my pet peeve. I love questions. And like, I want to know, like, were you paying attention? And are you a critical thinker? And so one question that I think this opportunity or this experience has given students to ask is, you know, you can tell a lot about a company with how they dealt with this organization. So you can almost flip that, tell me about a time on them, right? So can you tell me what was your organization's response to coronavirus? How easily were your interns able to work from home? You know, what did you do to ensure not only that people were still working, but that they were still healthy and wellness was an issue? So using a question like that to flip it around, I think could be very illuminating about some organization just working with students. We're all over the place with internship sites, and some of them handled it really well, and some of them didn't as well.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Yep.
But I love questions. You know, I love questions. So for the 27 other people that are on the call, I'm sure you have one.
Yeah, or else Bridget and I will just keep asking questions. So, so any other questions, Nick or Cindy? Do you have any that you've heard, or that things, Nick at Calvin, if there have been questions that students have asked you that you think would be important for all of us?
I'd be curious to hear from both of you as recruiters. You know, what would you recommend to people as, especially those who are college seniors, as they're entering into, you know, a market that looks really different than what we were expecting it to be for these seniors? As they're looking for jobs, what would you say are some of the best ways they could use their time?
Generally, if you were to ask me that under normal circumstances, I would say that expanding your network is probably the best thing that you can do. There are certainly events that allow for you to do that. Now, it's going to be a little bit different, obviously, under these circumstances. And I think taking advantage of tools like, let's say, for example, like a LinkedIn, right, where you have an opportunity to network and connect with people, enhancing your profile and presence there. And I still think, you know, the key really is to focus on that network regardless, but it might just have to be a little bit more electronic or virtual, I would say at this point. And we're actually adjusting accordingly. So a lot of our events, a lot of our career events, a lot of things that we're doing, you'll see are more um, virtual events, but it's still an opportunity to connect, right? And I think that's important.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It's tough because I will say it again, it's new. It's just so new to everyone. And it's, instead of it being so transactional, just remember that you're still wanting to connect with those humans. Like, yes, I'm a recruiter and I work for a company, but also I'm going through the same things that you are going through. So just don't lose hope if the first few positions don't work out, because we're all still figuring this out. We do know that graduates are coming. We, especially as a university team, like, we prep for this every year, but we just didn't know that this was going to happen. So I would just really encourage students to not be so discouraged if the first few positions don't work out, because something will happen if you keep networking, if you keep connecting with people on LinkedIn. Something will happen if it's, that position or just advice given. So I would just encourage students to keep doing that.
Right. And, with LinkedIn and other resources, always your alumni office, your career services office, absolutely. These folks are working. They figured out the remote. They're doing a heck of a job outside of their office, still continuing to work and service their students. So definitely reach out to them, reach out to the alumni associations on LinkedIn. If you're going to reach out to any of us, just make sure an understanding that everybody's using LinkedIn right now. It's one of the great sources to network, which means your financial salespeople, your people that are independent salespeople are trying to get business. They're reaching out like crazy and they want 20 minutes of my time, 15 minutes of my time, whatever it is. If you don't send me a reason why you want to connect with me, you're to the last of it. I put the ones that say, Cindy, you were on this call. I did this from a couple of weeks ago. Can you connect, and what advice do you have? And I'll set up a phone call with you. And another thing too is it may not be a Zoom call. It may not be a virtual call, because we are all day, one right after the other, after the other, after the other. Sometimes we might just ask for a phone call. So don't be discouraged either if we just ask you for a phone call. It doesn't mean we don't want to see you. It doesn't mean we don't want to talk to you virtually. It just means we might have had too many, and we might just want to do a phone call. Or now it's my spouse's opportunity to use the internet and the bandwidth, so I have to only be on the phone. So just take what you can get and write your thank you letters and be very thoughtful when you do have that time with those individuals.
So now we have a number of questions that actually are coming in. We just have to get the ball rolling, One individual: with many internships being canceled, how should students go about seeking professional summer work? So how can they make themselves relevant and keep up with their resume skill building in this situation?
Yeah, that one's tough. I have a mentee through my through Wayne State's corporate mentorship program, and I was really excited. She was going to come on to our HR team for the summer, but since her team was actually an event-based internship, since we are moving our internship program virtually, that position wasn't needed anymore. So that was tough to have that conversation. I think just when I'm chatting with her about it, and as we've been talking through it, it's just looking at other opportunities at the company, because she's so set on working for the company, and she's trying to figure out what of her skills can fit at the next best position. But I also challenged her too. I was like, because she's also passionate about the Detroit community. And I'm like, nonprofits need volunteers now almost more than ever. Like, they are really short staffed and are also overcoming these challenges that they don't have the capacity to overcome. So reaching out to nonprofits and saying, hey, if you're looking for a marketing position, like, do you want to help run social media? Do you want me to run some metrics? Anything that you think your skills can fit with, reach out to those companies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wanted to mention too that there's a number of organizations that maybe either always had remote internships or now are moving those internships online. And again, like we've been saying, the future of work may be more virtual than ever before. And so to be able to get an internship that's virtual and to build those skills of time management and, not complaining about being on an 8 a.m. Zoom call cetera, would be really great. One organization that I've been working with is called thepeople.org. They're a nonpartisan group, and they have 3 different remote internships, 100% remote. They are always been remote. They all work remote, so they know what they're doing. And so if you go to thepeople.org, just a little shameless plug for them.
All right, so Dana,
Yes.
we're getting close on time. So we've got, I think, 2 or 3 more questions.
Yes, I think we can group a couple of them,
Okay.
because one has to do with basically making yourself sparkle in the hiring process. So we had questions about video or virtual resumes becoming more popular, yes or no, and then your LinkedIn profile. So what are some key tips that you would have for candidates, whether it is a untraditional resume or LinkedIn profile or love letter as your cover letter? What do you suggest? What are your
Well,
Tell you-
Mickey?
Yeah, no, I can
Yeah,
tell you that LinkedIn is actually very, very important in our world, and in the way that you present yourself there. And if someone is actually interested in getting their hands on some materials to help enhance your profile, there are things available within the LinkedIn Learning Center, and I'm happy to share with anyone who might want to disseminate that information. But it's important. I have to tell you that it's among the first things I do when I have a resume come across my desk. Is I almost treat their LinkedIn profile as their resume. I feel like I can get a more holistic look. I feel like I can get a feel for, there's more room to talk about activities and organizations and volunteer opportunities, and those are things that just really speak to me. So I think it's very important how you portray yourself there.
I agree. I would update your LinkedIn as soon as possible. Right now with recruiters, with some of their roles being just some insider information, with some of their roles maybe being paused or needing to be readjusted, recruiters are spending a lot of time looking for candidates on LinkedIn. So they look through by keywords or whatever it might be, year that you graduated, things like that. So definitely keep that updated so that way they can see. I also really like the idea about like a video resume. I've never seen that. I think that's awesome if you can create that. I would always have both though, keep a traditional one and a video one, because I think you're above what most of these technologies are. I don't know if our recruiting system can handle a resume video, but if you sent me that in an email atop of your traditional resume, that'd be so cool. So I like the idea.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. And I did send a note. I know, and this goes without saying, any of the career staffs, we are open for business. So if we don't get to your questions, contact your career office, go on to Handshake, make an appointment with any one of us, right, Nick? You can, we are all ready and willing to help and work through some of those other questions. So Cindy, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Awesome, thank you. So this has been fantastic. I really appreciate everyone coming on to help, as well as those that are listening. We thought it would be great to leave you with a nugget. So I'm going to start with Will. If you could just leave us with one bit of information, wisdom, I guess, for everyone that's listening.
Yeah, I would say that, we mentioned this a few times, but it is unique, and to not get discouraged. That people hear from the how we're looking at it from the employer side is that this isn't going to be something that we plan on lasting forever, right? And when we go, we're going to want to go, and we're going to need talent, and we're going to need top talent. And so I know it's a unique circumstance, but I would say just keep after it, keep positive, control the things you can control, and it'll work out the way it should.
All right, Mickey.
Yeah, well, this is tough, just one. I think if I had to pick one, I think the most important thing to remember is that, and I mentioned this before, it's not transactional. We're still humans. It might feel like what you're doing is applying for a position or a job, and you're waiting for a recruiter to call you back or whatever it might be, it's still that human interaction. And even if you're worried or nervous or hesitant about a position, recruiters decided to follow that path because they're passionate about connecting people to their careers that they want to build on. So just remember, it's that human interaction. We're resources for you, so don't be afraid to reach out.
Absolutely. Bridget.
Yeah, I would say, you know, I was using my acting skills. I did take some improv classes a few years ago. But at the same time, what I hope that you all do is be authentic and be yourselves, right? So even if I was doing my do it right version, I'd still be Bridget Avery, and like people would still be like, oh yeah, that's Bridget Avery, right? I'm not like, yes, Cindy, thank you, Dr. Hebriard, right? Like that's not me. And so I need to exude the same warmth that I would in person that I do on video. And so, you know, don't lose that. You don't want to be an actor, on the other hand, and stiff, but you also don't want to lose that sense of self. So like we said before, you know, whatever your situation is, you can say that from the beginning. Hey, I'm really sorry. This is the only place I have to do my interview, etc. But be yourself. And, you know, if you smile a lot, smile on camera. If you don't smile a lot, don't.
Nick.
I would say be aware of what your body language communicates in an interview. I think especially when you don't have a chance to meet someone in person, like Bridget was saying, your smile, your hand gestures, if, you know, crossing like this can portray boredom or lack of interest. Allow me to, you know, to see where your hands are. Think about like gestures that you can use to help keep your audience engaged. We're like, okay, so there are 3 things I want you to know. So first of all, I think I'm really good at this. Second, this. Third, this. That like just like really pulls your audience in. And I think it helps to make you a little more memorable, right? You just feel more engaged. Similarly, like do pay attention to making eye contact with your camera, because that really also is going to help to build a relationship across, you know, whatever distance you are with your recruiter.
Dana, you got anything?
Well, I was thinking about the fact that it's really important to think outside the box. And I know that sort of critical thinking, yeah, we always talk about that, but it's so important. And just thinking about ways that you could become visible. You know, I think about Hex Armor and Terry Berry, 2 local companies in West Michigan that are now working together. Terry Berry makes awards, not necessarily essential. Hex Armor transitioned and they're doing safety equipment. They needed people. They're working together to keep everybody employed. And so that type of mentality, that sort of, hey, I can, you know, Mickey talked about volunteering. If you're volunteering, maybe write some blogs if you're a gifted writer. Maybe if you are really good at spreadsheets, think about how you could practice and develop those skills even further. Anything that you can do to keep yourself moving forward. That's always my advice.
Absolutely. You know, and Nick, you brought up a really good point about how you just finished. The handshake was my favorite. I love the handshake in business where you can just handshake and look somebody straight in the eye, introduce yourself because you knew you made a difference in that 3 seconds. And that's going to be different. So we have to figure out something different to do. I was, I guess, fortunate enough to have been laid off right before the Great Recession in 2008. And I received a quote from my grandparent or from my mom and dad that my grandpa had written. People know this story, but it's so true. The quote was, "Where would the turtle be if he never stuck his neck out?" And that has helped me in the last 11 years to get to the position I'm at today. Whenever I have a situation, I think I could sit here and I can, oh gosh, whatever. But I also like how Nick said, you got to, or whoever said it was, you got to control what you can control. And I sit there and say, yeah, this is who I am. This is what it's going to be. Or I could stick my neck out like Dana just said, and all of these panelists have said, and do something about it and control what you can control. So think positive intent. Assume positive intent that everybody's trying to help everybody, and just, we appreciate you for being with us today. Please, you have resources, reach out to the career offices, make appointments. They are there, they want to help you. This is what they do. So on that, have a great night. Thanks for hanging out with us on the 3rd installment and final installment of this series. but there might be down the road some more, maybe.
Yeah. And thank you, Cindy and Will and Mickey, for being here. We all really appreciate it.
Thank you. Yes, thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Yep,
Yeah.
thanks.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.